The things that that Alex has to do the fight. He's got 4 Force of Will, 4 Daze, 4 Curse Catcher, 1 Spell Pierce. Those are his fighting cards when it comes to fighting the combo. We've already talked about Michael Bernat's deck, but for those of you who don't know what his deck looks like, it's basically a pretty awesome revamp of the old Time Spiral High Tide deck. This is not a Solidarity deck that can go off on its own turn, or sorry, on your turn, but it is instead a deck that's designed to use Time Spiral, which is the newly unbanned 6-mana sorcery, which actually costs 0 or occasionally is free plus a bonus mana return to you. That's actually how it wins, is untap all of your lands with a High Tide out and get even more mana than you put into it.
These types of decks are always pretty fun to watch.
Oh, absolutely.
I like watching like Elf decks combo. I like watching these types of decks like count their mana as they go up.
I'm willing to bet that Mike Bernat wins this one. Alex has 1 Spell Pierce in the board, and then back to basics maybe as a way to hurt some of the duels, maybe. But really, other than that, he doesn't have weapons other than Daze, Force of Will. And like you said, Daze is not necessarily particularly effective.
I'd like to point out, I really like Alex's list. Alex has a Sower main. That's really good.
I mean, it's
he
not...
has Kiras. Kiras are so good. Like, we watched the Kiras crush Lou last game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Alex is somebody that you can count on having a great Merfolk list. You know, Alex and I spent a lot of time talking about his Merfolk list after he did really well at one of the last events last year. And it was his first real breakout with Merfolk. And basically, I just picked his brain because I wanted to get a sense of what to do with it. And he had everything that we talked about with it. He had smart things to say. And pretty much after I finished talking to him, I felt like I wanted to change, for my purposes, 1 card. And I'm somebody that I like to change cards when people make lists. So that's pretty impressive that he kept me down to just the 1. They've got their hands now. Bernat opens with an island. Aether Vial.
He's always got it.
And Bernat goes with another island. Ponder.
Notice that Bernat played his land first.
I actually don't know if you care if he dazes right now, unless you really want the Ponder specifically. Even with the Aether Vial out, just getting that land off the table, getting the daze out of the hand is like another little level of clearing things out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, giving your opponent less options is always good practice.
Oh, I agree.
Especially when you're playing against somebody who's good and who you're not trying to tripwire Alex into making a mistake by, you know, thinking you kept a 1-lander, because Alex knows you're not going to keep a 1-lander.
Well, this is a deck that actually can keep a 1-lander. I mean, Michael Bernat knows what's going on in the Magic scene well enough to know that Alex is likely to be playing Merfolk today. So you don't want to keep a 1-lander with that against Merfolk, even with all of your cantrip-style spells. But it's not unreasonable for Bernat's deck to keep a 1-lander against another opponent. Okay, Silvergill Adept starts out pretty innocuously, but there are a number of lords that can join in and help that guy out. 10 lords plus 4 Coralhelm commanders, which can build up to a lord.
Autumnsville seems like it's just a complete total blowout in this matchup.
Yeah.
It's a nice Cunning Wish target.
And he puts both of those to the bottom to get a new card from his Preordain. Then he casts yet another hand sculpting card. Looks like, is that Force of Will land? Can't quite make it out.
I see a Force of Will. I see a Trop.
Ah, Tropical Island. Is he going to shuffle? Looks like a... oh, no, he grabs the Force of Will.
He probably doesn't want the other 2, but he can always just shuffle.
Yep, he does have a sack land in play. Fetch that up, get those cards out of there.
We, of course, don't know what that card is. The one on the top of his library?
Yeah.
We know there's a Trop underneath it, but the top card of his library might be very good.
Okay. Wasteland. Merfolk Regery, which is an absolutely monstrous threat.
Whenever you play.
He's like, hang on a second, maybe.
So my boss limit does not trigger. Wait.
Okay, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah, Regery like allows you to combo in a sense. You can, especially in the older versions of Merfolk. The amount of tapping and untapping you can do, it makes combat extraordinarily hard for your opponent.
Now,
If you have one in play, they can like never have a blocking plan.
this is one of those matchups where the tropical islands are actually a real liability. That Wasteland as a time walk, it backs it up with a lot of damage. His opponent is tapped out. It is possible for this deck at this point to go for the win.
Yeah.
Now or never.
The Aether Vial is on 2, so there's not going to be any potential for secret Curse Catcher shenanigans.
Now the green splash, like originally when it's just for explore, okay, it makes the deck turn faster. You know, it helps replace Thawing Glaciers when you're actually comboing. But once you see Autumn's Veil, it's just
Oh man,
so exciting.
monstrous. Here we have a Daze to try to fight the High Tide. And I think he might just pay for it if he has a turnabout. He has a turnabout. Yeah, pays for the High Tide. Another Daze. Now this one you have to fight for, or you've got to give up the Ghost on going for it this turn.
Oh, I'm an idiot. Oh my god.
It might not be, if he has another High Tide in hand, it might not be unreasonable to just wait till next turn. But if he doesn't, he probably should Force a Will and play the fight for it now. Force a Will tossing a second. Is that a second High Tide?
It is second high tide.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that then. Turnabout.
That's out my lens.
0 mana floating currently. When he casts Time Spiral, he'll have 2 mana floating.
You want storm count here or mana floating?
Yeah, well.
Gets out his
yeah, we're
storm
gonna need
counter,
a
gets out his
storm
mana
count
counter.
And a island count. This will be my storm count, so. What did I do this turn?
And he's just going off
You have two
right
days,
through both those days on
4,
turn 4.
5. 5.
I have a storm here, so fine.
Okay.
But remember, this isn't over yet. When he spirals, he can just draw Alex right back into forces.
Oh,
And if
absolutely.
Alex, like that's one of the big dangers in a matchup like this.
You know, people say that, but it's never really true. You know, because you're getting your Force of Wills and you're getting counter spells,
Well, the 6.
and you've got the mana to use them.
It's going down to 1 and 1.
So I shuffle. So I'm going to respond to that.
Oh, a little bit of get that card out of the mix.
Now we
Yep.
shuffle. Hands in.
And library.
Now Mike has 2 mana floating. Looks like he's got a green and a blue.
I have a question.
Ready
for
for an
you.
explore.
Have you lost after you've resolved High Tide today,
And I'm gonna
No, today, have you? I just want
Do
to know
something
if
with
you
it.
whiffed. Or have
I've
you-
whiffed. One time I
Adrian's
whiffed
going for another jog.
and time was called while I was going off. And then, but I had 4 turnabouts in my hand.
Now, if Alex can draw into a few Force of Wills here, he can.
That
He
is
can
sad.
pretty like he can
That
just
is pretty sad.
break this combo right out.
absolutely. I mean, it's a possibility, certainly.
Yeah, 2 mana for you.
Of course, there are things that Mike can do that would
And,
just
did we get the...
In my
break the game wide open.
Yeah, in my experience, about the only time you lose from this position is either if your deck flubs entirely, or if your opponent manages to cast 15 Forces of Will in a turn. And I'm actually being literally like that's a literal thing. I think I see a counterspell, explore.
Yeah, see some counter spells. Ascend, explore,
Yeah.
draw a card.
Another high
Time
tide.
spiral. Oh, high tide.
And
2 mana.
High tide?
cast the second high tide. The tide is now at 3. 3 mana for every island.
This is is on 8 now.
Yeah.
If Alex had on the islands, they would also tap for extra blue mana.
Brainstorm, emptying out the pool, turnabout, something. Counterspell. Imagine if there's a Thawing Glacier in play. Wow.
I think that's a whiff.
Oh, he might have a whiff.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna concede. Yeah, there's no way I can.
What's he doing?
Hey!
What?
That was my
Wow. Okay.
Oh,
I
man.
don't agree with picking it up there.
One card.
I did not draw a force off of that.
Yeah.
Either. No force.
What's going on?
He had.
Wow. I
I'm so
literally did not
confused.
know until you did that.
You thought you were in.
Oh, yeah, I thought it
you
was-
you were dead.
Alex Bertoncini
No, I was
won
in
that
it.
game because
They don't
Michael
even know
Bernat
that.
just scooped it up. But I
Who won
don't
that?
understand
Exactly,
why
yeah.
you would even do that. You've got the turnabouts. You're not under any danger of dying. You're at, I believe he was at 17 life minus the lands he sacked.
Well,
So he's at 15 life at that point.
I asked beforehand because if you said no, I was gonna be like, oh, well, we're totally like we're running against the ringer here, the stone cold ringer.
His hand included Force of Will, turnabout, counterspell.
Bring in my card that Josh.
He can just wait for a few turns and
One.
try again.
Glub glub. Bloop, bloop.
No,
No,
no. The
he's on
Merchant
top
Scroll
of his deck.
was a one deeper than the Brainstorm.
I can take my time if I
He's
don't
not
have
going
to
to see it
block.
because he's going to shuffle his other cards away.
If a low one just conveniently blocks Mutavault too. Casual 2/2.
Now, why would he?
All right, what are we cutting here?
Just so confused.
There was no reason to do that. There was no reason to do that.
I don't think there's a reason to play the other High Tide either, if you're not sure. If
Oh God, no. There's no reason to play the other High Tide if you haven't checked to see what's going on in terms of the top of your library.
You play a creature.
Now remember, earlier when we were talking to Mike Bernat, he said that he was looking forward to being able to play this deck again for the last 12 years. Which is another way of saying he probably hasn't played this deck in 12 years.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
I'm going to do an exciting game 3. It's the whiffle that's the part that gets you.
This is just game 2.
Yeah.
Alex is up a game, and post board he actually doesn't get that much. Basically, he gets a Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
Back to
In
basics
blue
really is
sea.
not very
Tide's coming in.
impressive
It's
here.
so much fun to play.
I mean, it's
You win,
basically
and when
kind
you
of
turn it,
a
definitely
maybe
gotta
it's
say the
better than
tide's
my other
coming in.
junk kind of card, but I'm not sure what the junk would be.
I
Kira,
mean,
Kira
it-
might, no,
melted.
Kira
The tide
can
is
protect
coming
your
in.
creatures from Pyroblast.
It hits more lands out of Alex's
sorry?
deck.
Yeah, I know.
than
It's
out
gotta
of
be so
Mike's
boring
deck.
to play.
There's another guy who's
against.
actually one who's in top 8 contention playing it also. No, he's not. He's playing the mono blue version
Oh,
without
mono.
Explore. Like he has to cast hard cast Emrakul, like casual on turn like 4 or something. Like, right next to me, just Emrakul.
It's making it irrelevant.
Cloud of Fairies, the whole
Oh,
shebang.
I don't know about
He was
that,
never
but
at the basics. How can
It's
he
a
go
different
back?
version.
I'm the cool Cloud of Fairies thing,
I mean, you can't counterbalance Emrakul. Right? I doubt they have a 15 on top of it with that.
Counterbalance,
Well, maybe if you're bringing in Lawan, I should just save my Force of Wills for that. It's not your high tides or turnabouts or anything.
yeah.
Okay, so
Seems like
I was trying to mull over in my head what would be the rationale for any of the things. I think it's just honestly
you turn these islands
maybe a
against
combination
me.
of being tired and as well as a lack of experience with the deck. I mean, when Mike Bernat remembers this deck from the past, like I said, that was about 12 years ago. Mike Bernat was probably in high school or middle school or something. He was a young guy, and I'm not exactly sure how old Mike Bernat is. He might have been in kindergarten. I don't know. Huh? Oh, I'm a young
the
man.
top card of your deck or anything like that. Man, oh, God.
He was probably, I'm going to guess, somewhere between 16 and 19.
There's certainly
Yeah,
deep
12
hard
11,
to
12 years
actually
ago.
This one to beat. Not the ad nauseum ones. Those things are like
Yeah,
those
yeah,
things
those
are
are easy.
Okay,
real
so
joy. But those that ones little tougher to beat.
Oh, a little.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Oh,
I had him at about knee high.
Your mana
gonna
base
say it's
itself
30.
is a resistance. Like,
Oh, he's not in his 40s.
The other one was 16, 17 lands, and
say.
2 basics.
Poor
Those are
Mike
easy
Bernat.
ones.
It doesn't. It's not meant to be a beat. I'm just making up numbers.
Oh man. I was just informed that Gorillas broke up. Yeah, apparently.
Days the,
Yeah,
Aren't they?
apparently.
Yeah, aren't they cartoon characters?
Yeah, but they broke up, apparently.
How is that even possible?
just the right spell to-
I can just see Del the Funky Homo Sapien being like, "No, guys,
Sure.
I think I'm gonna go for a solo career again."
No, I messed up. Like, maybe I didn't mess up because
Were you
maybe
supposed
I
to be
had.
forced the first one?
No.
Yeah, I verified it. Gorillas has broken up.
High tide in response. But
Okay.
then,
Well, I mean-
but then you would have dazed that one. Then I would.
Rashad is probably familiar with Del the Funky Homo Sapien's
Oh.
previous.
But you, okay, you
Oh wait,
didn't
no,
have
wait. Yeah,
Did you
no.
have counterspell in your hand? No,
No.
Yeah, then I would have had to pay one, and then my
Music?
one would have tapped
No.
for only 3,
Yeah.
and then I wouldn't have been able to turn it back. So I would have lost.
Okay, so now we're going to have to see game 2. Yeah, it's funny because in my
It would've been
head,
the greedier
I already had Bernat as having won the first game, but that was the first
Probably,
game.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you need
some.
I needed that first.
These guys have taken too long to sideboard. Morning.
Jace off that time no islands. I'm so sick. Like, yeah.
Autumn's Veil.
Autumn's Veil. Yeah, Autumn's Veil's pretty good here. It's like the best Autumn's chant ever. It's like an Autumn's chant that counters a spell.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
In the one game we watched, he made his opponent have multiple counter spells on the stack for different spells, and then played Autumn spells, so he actually countered multiple spells with Autumn spell.
usually when you had to do that before, that cost you like 5 mana.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
4 mana sometimes. 1 mana is now. That's how it works. You just have to play a better color. Green is a better color than blue. I'm just being a contrarian there, obviously. Preordained from Mike Bernat faces against a turn 1 Aether Vial. A note from the floor. Apparently there's in another match a Voltaic key-based deck that's playing currently right now
I have a hard
for
time when I
top
preordained
8, currently in
preordained
contention.
Standard. Man, I wouldn't be able to play this deck.
He's got to have
Like, I
Blightsteel
preordained this-
Colossus.
if I
He might be the
preordained
Blightsteel
top
Colossus
thing,
guy.
on the preordained, I'd be like,
Forge Master.
How do I say
That's what it was.
We've talked about the Golgotha
Exactly,
Forge
yeah,
Master amazing breakout before, but for those of you who missed it, Grim Monolith into Voltaic, he makes 5 mana, 2 more mana from your lands, gives you a Golgotha Forge Master, and then a Lightning Greaves, and then your Forge Master gets Greaved, sacks everything but the Greaves, including himself, to get you a Blightsteel Colossus, which gets Greaved and then kills your opponent.
It's pretty sweet. Hey, I mean, I love me some Voltaic Key with Grim Monolith. Grim Monolith is so good.
Okay, we
When I found out they had unbanned that card,
Silvergill Adept comes into play, revealing a Coral Helm Commander. And we have Coral Helm Commander, Aether Vial with Mutavault Island versus Island, and a Fetch Land. There's been a small little smidge of manipulation of the deck via Ponder and via Preordained from Mike Bernat, still very early in the game. What is he thinking about? Merchant
trying to be
Scroll.
careful.
There we go. Oh, I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't trying to be denigrating. I just was wondering. Couldn't see his hand.
Nothing. Slow response to that. Just 2 misses.
And Curse Catcher can go into play in response.
Cards in it?
I don't know, is
Force of Will is another way to handle that.
do you force a Merchant Scroll? I feel like you force what he gets with a Merchant Scroll, right?
Well, he could get a Force of Will with the Merchant Scroll, and that actually is part of the problem.
I guess that's true.
that was one of the conversations that was really common back in the day, and after much tide and merfolk testing, it depends on your hand, but the risk of them getting a merchant scroll into a force of will is always rough. Is it a blue sun zenith in his hand?
This was some time spiral action.
I see a pyroblast. So preordained there, it looks like.
And Mike has a pyroblast, which is essentially a swords or a 1-mana counterspell here.
Right.
Puts both cards in the bottom.
Gets
for a land.
Gets one card in the bottom. He ripped that off.
Yes, he knew the land was there.
He knew the land was there and he wanted it. I don't know if I, unless I'm trying to give my opponent misinformation, I don't know if I like ripping it right off the top and into play. Letting my opponent know that I wanted a land.
Three. Coralhelm XX.
Now, the kind of damage that is potentially being threatened here, if a Lord of Atlantis comes down, for example, that is a lot.
Yeah, that's 10 damage.
That's a Coralhelm commander. Not quite a Lord, but it can lord up.
Yeah, I mean, it can lord up pretty quick. Like that. Knocks drew a land, and now can attack for well over 10 damage.
Is that a curse catcher? Yeah.
I wonder what he's untapping.
He untaps the island.
I'm choosing to untap my island with
So that's Reejery, Coralhelm Commander, Silvergill Adept, Curse Catcher in play. The Curse Catcher is ever so slightly blocked by that text. He's got Island, Island, Mutavault versus Triple Island and a Flooded Strand.
untap. Level 1.
And he spends that mana to level the Coralhelm Commander, lays another land, levels it again, lays another land, levels it again, or taps it all, levels him up.
Now he's a lord.
4, 3, 5.
So he puts his opponent down to 5. We'll get life totals up for you guys in a second.
One card in hand.
Yeah, Alex is
basically-
basically saying you got it.
Basically,
Go
between
ahead.
Curse Catcher and the potential for a daze, that's all the resistance he can put up. On the other hand, once Mike goes off, then he'll be able to potentially have resistance back in hand again. Now, Mike hasn't taken the damage yet. Remember, he has a Pyroblast in hand.
Yeah, I mean he's probably thinking about.
Pyroblast on that
Pyroblast,
Coralhelm
that
does
Coralhelm.
so much saving of life. Reduces that to 5 damage.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Go ahead.
Remember, Alex still has a 3/3 Mutavault that can get in there.
3, 6, 8. Threatening 10 damage, so he's still got him on a 1-turn clock.
Yeah, he's lethal.
With that in mind, it might have actually been a bad call to Pyroblast there. If it's
Yeah.
still a 1-turn clock.
Now the fun begins.
Now the fun.
Yeah, lucky I'm drawing the plan.
Did you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I might not have needed it unless you have a daze. High tide.
High Tide. 8 mana available.
I'll try and counter that.
Spend one more, please. Okay, I'll have 6 mana available. Days. Spend one more, please. Okay. 4 mana available after that. Snap.
Ooh.
Oh.
Snap and tapping my 2 lands.
That is a good sideboard card.
Time spiral and tap.
Oh, snap spiral.
Oh, snap.
Oh.
So,
And so again, Michael Bernat.
yeah, so islands are.
I think one of the things that's very likely that he did here, he probably boarded out his Cunning Wishes against Merfolk. You just do not have the time to mess around with a Cunning Wish.
Yeah, it's tough. And if you're taking out the Cunning Wish, you probably bring the Autumn's Vow into the main. You probably keep at least one in, right?
He, one Cunning Wish?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I just don't think you have time. I mean, he only has 1 Autumn's Veil on his sideboard. So it's he boarded it in because he knows he doesn't have time when he was playing that previous match.
Like,
And Lawan is going to be a card he can just
yeah, Lawan is
just
the
nut into.
bum, bum,
and-
bum, bum.
Okay, and now the moment of truth.
Lawan makes
The-
things very difficult for other merfolk.
Oh man. Okay, what do we got over there? That looks like a lot of land and a pyroblast.
Oh man.
Did you win?
No, well,
What is that card in his
Well,
end?
kind of.
Scalding
Kind of
turn?
I did, but you'll see.
No, the other end. That one right there.
Lawan.
Lawan.
Yeah.
How does it look? Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, but you can still do that, right?
Very much so,
Well,
sir.
that sucks.
Very much
Lawan's
so.
pretty good.
I forgot about that. All right. Yeah.
Oh god, don't get me wrong.
This thing's terrible.
It's very good. No. You don't
Okay.
understand. It's very good. I lost. The only round I lost it was when my opponent cast.
And you can probably hear Alex explaining how Lawan works to the guy playing it.
You gave me 7 cards,
I
dude.
know. I was hoping to draw some.
And the perfect answer to Lawan is the Coral Helm Commander.
Dun, 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 dun.
While he's tapped
Maybe more
out,
2 draw.
Yeah, so Alex can apparently when he puts things into play with the Aether Vial, he dodges the Lawan.
absolutely.
So,
Wasteland takes out the red source. Mutavault marches in.
things still don't look great for Alex. Only having 1 vial, he has to leave its number at a certain place to empty out cards at a certain cost
7 or 8. Oh, okay, more.
before he can pick it up, and then once he does,
It's the best
it becomes very
non-lord
difficult
ever, right?
because he can't play any other creatures.
Lord if I don't have it, isn't it?
Again, Michael Bernat's deck doesn't really have a board presence at
What,
all,
was I born
so
yesterday?
it doesn't
Shit.
care.
Oh man, what am I doing? Like,
Go ahead. Oh man, it usually works too. That's why I go to these events. Gets them every time.
So,
Who are you?
Okay.
what's going on here?
Do you know who I am?
No,
here we
I'm
have
just,
No, I was talking about you saying to me, like what are you trying to pull?
Merfolk have Island Walk, so if there's another Lord in Alex's hand,
No,
that means that next turn Michael Bernat will again die.
well, the Lord itself doesn't get the Island Walk.
Lord of Atlantis is fair enough.
Other.
You're right. What if it's another Lord of Atlantis?
If it's another Lord of Atlantis, he wins.
Yes.
The Pittsburgh
Merchant
Steelers
Scroll.
are losing 14-0.
Getting a Force of Will, perhaps?
For those of you interested in football, the Steelers are losing 14-0 right now.
Or getting a High Tide.
I think High Tide's probably a good choice here. He just needs to combo before he dies.
The blue mana that's open on Alex's side, it actually changes the equation pretty radically.
So you always to counter the tutors, because if you go for the force, then it's like if you already have the high tide, if you go for the force, it's like, but you just go for like, some people are stupid and just like, I'm sure like today people have force of will against you and they haven't countered the tutor, like, I'll just counter
You
what
can
they
just
get.
pass this
And then
back
you're
now?
just
Yeah.
like, go nuts.
I wish I had that last time.
Yeah, right?
No, you just go for it.
That's
Yeah.
the last game.
No, I mean just,
Oh, just
in my
this.
original, in the 7 that
Hopes
I
that
drew
nothing
up
happens.
tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Silver Gill Adept.
Silver God is just so good. I remember
What's
the
that?
first print of that card, I was like, what?
What's that do?
Card's so
So
good.
I don't
Force
get to
of will.
tap run tap with Reedry, but I do get the bonus.
I mean, it's really incredible on a deck like Alex's, where you have all these lords. I mean, it's gigantic. It draws you a card when it comes into play. You can just put it into play with your one card. Draw a card.
Cards in?
5.
5.
Waiting to see where the follow-up is here. If he attacks with the Mutavault, that's dramatically reducing his mana, which is a big deal. Right now, if he doesn't attack with it, he has the ability to cast 2 Force of Wills, should he have them in his hand. 1 from a hard cast after a High Tide resolves, and 1 from a pitch. But on the other hand, if he attacks with that Mutavault, it has Island Walk.
Beautiful.
Is that a Mishra's? No, it's not a Mutavault.
That is another mutable.
Okay, so he's threatening
So-
to kill next turn once again.
Now, if he has
Go ahead.
Yeah, he's holding back for the double Force of Will action.
but these guys have Island Walk.
He has to spend. He has to give up double Force of Will if he wants to attack with Mutavault.
Well, I'm saying he should have attacked with Adept.
Adept just was a main phase.
Oh, it was main phase?
Yeah, it
then?
was a main phase Adept.
Oh, I thought it was EOT. Okay. Completely reasonable.
And here he goes, going for the win.
I would also go for the win. That seems like the right play.
7, right? Okay, we will? Yeah.
Turnabout creatures, turnabout creatures.
And he packs it in.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. And Michael Bernat, playing High Tide, was eliminated.
Congrats, man.
Thanks, man.
I have to
Appreciate it.
say, you know, I like Alex a lot, but that makes me